friends. We have another wonderful conversation today that's going to be a little bit different. I met Stacey Andon recently and was really intrigued with the things that she has to share. So let me introduce her. Stacey has walked through some of the most difficult life experiences, discovering along the way that life is way more fun and magical when we break up with life's prescribed boxes. I love that. Her unique blend of practical wisdom and intuitive insights offer a fresh perspective on self-discovery that isn't looking to transcend our humanity, but rather to enhance it. Oh, that is so wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your journey, Stacey.
Sure, absolutely. So, it's interesting. We all have these like backgrounds where, well, at least for me, I've meandered through a lot of things. I started as an English teacher, teaching middle school, and I grew up as the oldest of five, so I had a lot of responsibilities, taking care of my siblings and things of that nature. I got married very young, and I realized somewhere in my early 20s or maybe later 20s that the life that I was living I was miserable. I was severely overweight. My marriage was a mess. I was in an abusive relationship. My relationship with my family, because I had a lot of childhood trauma that I hadn't yet really kind of met face to face. So all these things kind of bubbled up in my 20s. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I got this voice, Sandra, and it was like, I always describe it kind of like the Wizard of Oz, right? This big booming voice. And it was like, this is not your life. You're not meant to be here. And I'm like, wait, what? What am I going to do? Because I was so afraid that I couldn't life felt so daunting that it was like, what am I actually going to do to get myself into a different place? But I swear the voice said to me, you're not meant to like settle into this space. You can do it. I believe in you. You can do it. And you are going to transform your life in the next 10 years. You won't even recognize your life anymore. Now, when I had that moment, it was like, all right, is this for real? Like for serious? But there was something about it. I don't know if you had a moment like where you've had that moment with yourself where something, even though you have no idea how you're going to do it, even though it's scaring so much of you to even think about it, but at the same time, you're also kind of drawn to the truth of it. You're drawn to this like, okay, I was absolutely miserable. And so it was like a big permission slip to be like, okay, scrap. You need to scrap some of this and start over.
So what Stacey is talking about is the subject of our talk today, a leap of faith.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about what sort of signs people might experience. So there's like, oh, this is calling me.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but for me, there's always this little like itch or nudge. And the clients and people I've worked with over the years, it's like something isn't quite right, but generally you don't know exactly what it is. Like I said, in my 20s, there were things kind of starting to stir, but it didn't kind of come full circle into my awareness until a little bit later. So I think that this idea of leaps of faith, like saying, okay, I'm going to make a change. Most of us are thinking, oh my gosh, I need to make a big proclamation. Like I need to be divorced. I need to change jobs. I need to change cities. But leaps of faith absolutely start with just this kind of quiet, I think, quiet nudges around like, am I as happy as I thought I'd be now that I'm doing this? Or maybe, I should be happy, but I'm not, or I feel a little stuck. There's just a little bit. It's almost like whatever that little bit, I think of it like the pea in the mattress, right? Of that story, that fairy tale where she can kind of feel that little tiny irritation or something that's off. And, by look, nobody would look at you and say, oh, you need to uproot, but you're feeling it. You're starting to get that nudge.
So if somebody is in that place, whether it's a little nudge or a bigger nudge,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what does somebody do?
That's a really great question. I like to get curious, first of all. It's like, ooh, let's just tap into like, well, what is it? Like, is there something if I could do anything right now, this is like you start to play with your imagination. What would I do if there were no rules, no restrictions, nothing stopping me, nobody would be upset with me or I would be in trouble. If I could do whatever I want in this moment, what would I do? And there's some truth to that. You want to get to the truth that's kind of underneath all of the, like what we were saying in my intro, the boxes of like, this is what a happy or successful life looks like. But am I really that happy? Like, if I could choose anything, would I choose this all over again? And I think once you start to get truthful about that, then you can start to use your imagination to be like, ooh, well, what would it be like? I mean, that's what I did before I got divorced. What would it be like to be divorced? Where would I live? And you start to just, before you make or do any action, you just start to play with the possibility. And I think a lot of times we forget that part of it because we see the after, right? We see the pretty after transformation. This is what happened at the beginning, and now I'm here. We don't talk about this kind of messy, more non-linear path of what a leap of faith or any big change or little change really entails.
So, for those of you watching, either now or later, let's pay attention to what Stacey is talking about right now, because when I think leap of faith, it's like, oh, this is like big, like
Yeah.
life-changing thing. But what Stacey is talking about is the internal, quiet, thinking about what I want step.
Yeah.
That is a really important part of it. It's not going to be, I'm just going along and then bam,
Yeah.
it hits me. This is an extended process.
Very much so. And I love how you frame that too, because it's very invisible, right? To the
Mm.
people aren't realizing you're over here thinking about this stuff. It's very much an inner thing. And it's interesting too, Sandra, a lot of people think when they're thinking about leaps of faith, oh, I need to do this, right? I need to change jobs. I've had so many people over the years come to me and say, oh my gosh, Stacey, I need to get divorced. I need this, I need that. And I say, okay, let's just slow down for a minute. We're going to take a nice breath in, and we're going to be in this space of curiosity and imagination for a minute. And a lot of times, what I've found is they don't necessarily, like, the leap isn't exactly the way they imagined it to be. Like, or the leap itself, which is, oh, this will fix what I'm unhappy about, or this will fix, maybe, but maybe it won't. And so when you don't go through that, like, again, this quiet inner space, you might wind up making a decision or taking a leap that isn't necessarily as in alignment with what you truly want to do.
Just like anything, if I
Mhm.
have a goal, for example, that I'm working towards, it's not all going to be just a straight road.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I get on the path, and I was like, oh, and I make a turn. I was like,
Yes.
oh, maybe I step back so
Yeah.
that it doesn't, again, have to be this.
Yeah. It's
It's
not
like,
usually, actually.
yes. And so, one of the things that you mentioned that we could talk about is how, leaps of faith could
Mhm.
be a normal daily part of life.
Absolutely. I feel like I live this kind of life philosophy because I mean, think about it. Every morning we get up is kind of a leap of faith, right? What are we going to do with this 24 hours that we have in front of us, and how we're going to, put where we're going to put our time and attention and all of that. And it's kind of like just living in the world is like that. So you're right. It becomes this daily. I think I love what you said, because what you said was, instead of, because we have brilliant minds, all of us, and it says, okay, the quickest way to see this to fruition, to get the results, is to go here, right down the straight line. But if you're really truly living what I would call this kind of leap of faith, leaps of faith go, oh, we're going to go sideways, like you said, or we're going to
Mhm.
go over here. Or maybe what you thought was the goal or the end result, well, are you willing to, like, let that go, or let that maybe go to the side for a moment to consider something that's even, more amazing, that's really here, that you hadn't even couldn't wrap your head around at the beginning? Are we willing to be in the mystery and the uncertainty of life? And I think, to your point, so many of us, right? We want the plan, we want to know, especially even with a leap. Like, I want to know that I take this leap, it's going to work out. And really, what a leap of faith says is, maybe it will work out like you imagined. And maybe it's going to be something even more mind blowing. Are you willing to trust yourself? Are you willing to really honor your own path that might squiggle around here versus like the way we think the world handbook is, which is like this very forward, straight motion?
So tell me a little bit about the role of like guidance
Mm,
and God or whatever people believe in,
yeah.
as well as like connecting with other people.
Mm,
So it sounds like this is something that you coach people through this
yes.
process, and you don't necessarily have to do it alone.
No. Actually, I think it's so much there's like an old proverb, right? If you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with go with a group or go with community. And I think you're 100% right. Like we think, oh my gosh, we have to go, you know, we've got to figure everything out. I equate it to years ago, I went whitewater rafting on a group and we were debating on whether we would hire a guide. And we were like, oh, it's extra money and all these things. And I was like, and then I was like, you know what? I want to have fun and I want to have it in a way that feels safe. And I want to have it in a way that, again, the guide isn't going to, row all the boats for us, but the guide knows, hey, there's a little weird spot right here that you might get stuck in. And so he or she or they are going to offer some wisdom for us around that. And I think that that's, to your point, guidance, God, spirit, however whatever relationship you have with that, is this idea that there is guidance, real humans, right, on the planet, and also this presence. And it kind of goes back to this, are we willing to get quiet? The world's a very loud, very noisy place. Are we willing to stop for a moment and really get clear? First of all, I always think like what matters most to you? Like Sandra, like if you had to choose one thing in your life that you value, that like at the end, like this is the thing. And how can we be in service of that today? What wisdom does that have to share? Like, for example, right now, I'm very much in my own relationship with harmony and devotion. And so, what does harmony want me to know today? What does, how can I be in service of being devoted to being in service or being in I have a beautiful relationship with love and I think it's very, very messy. And so it's like, how can I just be in that? And usually what happens is the leaps of faith, you don't have to there isn't some big, construction around it. They naturally happen when you're in kind of living from that space.
Sounds like, again, things that people might think about this is that it's like here and then here,
Hmm.
and that there's a beginning and an end,
Yeah.
when really it's not.
Yeah.
And so it's just part of the journey, just like any, I'm just going to put it in terms of goals. So, like, if I have a goal that's out there, what I
Mhm.
actually get to might not actually look like what I think it should.
Yeah.
But the path to get there is where so much value
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I think it would be boring. Tell me what you think about this, but I think it would be really boring if we knew exactly what to do every step of the way of our life. It's like, oh, here's a goal we're going to do. We would be bored. I really think. I don't know. I think to your point, it's so much juicier to be in the living. It's like,
Mhm.
what is it like? Like, again, whatever goal you have, like, what is it like to be in relationship with that, right? Whether you want to make more money, you want to find your soulmate, like, and to your point, the wisdom comes from allowing us to be in the relationship. That's not me, by the way. The music is like, yes, agreed. And so it allows us to really be in whatever the things are we truly want to experience in life. We think, to your point, we think it's like when we get there, but that's the other big, I think, illusion of life. It's like right? When I get whatever, $1 million in the bank, the body I wanted, this, then I will be what? Then I will be happy. Then I will be satisfied. Then I'll have the life it's an illusion of this idea, because then what happens, I find with myself and clients, is then there's something else. Once you've hit the milestone marker, then then it's like, oh, okay, well now I need, or now I want. And so we're always out in the future rather than being right here in this now. And one of the things that I've picked up along the way in my life is like, there isn't anything better, this idea that it will be better, but this is the moment. We're always in this moment. What is already working and amazing in this space? And so I think that, again, that kind of gets wrapped up around the leap of faith living.
Yeah. Here's what comes to mind now. Something I've been paying a lot of attention to lately is the unconscious mind.
Mm.
And having that introspective space, as well as interacting with other people, makes available for what my conscious mind thinks to kind of get out of the way a little bit, so that what's underneath it, the true change, the true healing, the true possibility, the true creativity, is able to bubble up. If I'm in this place of defining, like action steps and all that stuff, I am going for my conscious and controlling it somewhat. But when I allow this process to, again, bubble up and evolve and change and shift and experiment and see where I want to turn, then I'm allowing the internal guidance system, which is actually where all the power is,
right?
The unconscious mind, I allow that to make itself known, so that I can get what I really want.
Yeah, it's so true. Are we really willing? I would call it, like, just in my own language, it's like we've been very much programmed to live like in our heads and have the head, but really, can we be in service, heart, soul, whatever you want to call that, the subconscious? Can we allow ourselves that shift? And I think just as a planet, a lot of us are going through that. And it's bumpy and messy because we want to default, right? You default to whatever that is. It's like, oh, my brain thinks it knows the answer. And it's like, but really, it's just going to the brain uses whatever it already knows, right? It doesn't have the ability to go out into, like, what I would call the field of all possibility, the realms in the subconscious. Like, what do you really want to create? What do you really want to do here on this planet? I love that. I think that's amazing.
So, what do you do when fear comes up?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Because I think a lot of us think, oh, well, we just get rid of the fear and then, we'll wait for the moment where I'm not afraid anymore. Spoiler alert, at least for me, it has never happened, right?
Not going to happen.
It's not happening. So what do we do instead? And what I found, again, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. The system that has kind of worked for me over the years, and it's worked for a lot of clients, is like, befriend the fear. So if we are imagining the fears like, the big bad wolf chasing us, and we're trying to build a bigger thing to keep it out, it's like, fling open the door and let the thing you're most afraid of, like lean into it. What am I most afraid of? And generally it's, people aren't going to understand. They're going to judge me. I'm going to be rejected. I'm not going to actually get what I want, right? This isn't going to work. Whatever it is, because I believe so much of fear we've picked up along the way, but a lot of us have created kind of whatever that voice is to try to keep us safe, to try to get us what we want. It's trying to protect us, but we have to kind of sit back or get into that witness space and go, you know what, maybe that's not actually working as well. Can I love that part of myself that's afraid? Can I love the part of it that's like, ooh, this might not work out so well? It's like, true, we don't know. And so when you get into a relationship with kind of the uncertainty, I think you disarm the fear a lot more powerfully that way than trying to keep it at bay or get over it, or, any of that. I just don't find it works that well.
Thank you. So, why don't you tell people how they can connect with you and if you have something that you can give them?
Absolutely. So, a lot of times people have not, they're like, what is coaching and all of that? And I always say, come in and actually get coached. This is not a conversation that I'm going to tell you about coaching. This is actually like maybe you have a little itch or you have something that, maybe you're afraid of and it's stopping you from doing something. Come have a completely free, no strings. I don't do strings. I don't do sales. I just say, come experience what it's like. And you can find the link for that session on my website, which is my name, staceyandon.com.
And the links will be in the comments
Yep,
with
I'll
the
drop
video.
all that in my comment.
So, do you have a last point that you want to leave people with?
Hmm. I do, and thank you so much, Sandra, for having me. I really appreciate this. Is beautiful, and I love your questions. Just make me think, also, too, which is such a gift to be in this moment with you. What I think ultimately is two things: is get curious about your life. The more you can just be compassionately curious and not mean judgy, it's like, oh, that's so interesting. I've always wanted to do that, but I've never felt like I could. Or, oh, I'm watching somebody else do something. I'm feeling a little pangs of jealousy or envy. It's like, oh, maybe there's something in that person's life or something going on that's information and a message for me. So the more we get curious and we just take a pause, I think pausing is like the best life. I don't want to say hack, but life, whatever on the planet. If you took a couple pauses throughout your day, it's just like, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What's my brain offering me? Oh, if I dropped into that subconscious heart energy, that soul space, do I have a different perspective? Is there wisdom there for me? And I think when you're curious and you allow the space, you'll start to find that the synchronicities and the all of the nudges and everything are there for you, right there, and you'll be like, wow, I didn't even see that, for a while.
Thank you so much, Stacy. This has been fun.
Thank you.
I encourage you connect with Stacy and have that conversation with her. Thank you all for being here.
Take care.